I am Morgan.
And I'm Jake, and this is
Neverland Navigation Radio.
Where are we?
Where are we?
Wow, I know exactly where we are because this land is so immersive.
Okay.
It was hypothetical.
All right.
Today we're discussing and ranking my worst intros to the podcast ever.
No.
Just kidding. Today we're ranking the most immersive lands at Walt Disney World.
Yeah, absolutely.
How are you today, Morgan?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm deep diving into the immersion of it all.
Okay.
I had trouble putting together my list because just to narrow it down to what I consider to be the most immersive, it was a little bit hard, and I did it kind of like loosely tiered in terms of level of immersion.
Same.
And that was tough too.
Yeah. Although I think the most immersive ones were easy.
Yes.
There were like a few that I was like, no brainer.
Yes.
It's like you're there.
It is the bottom half of the list that I think might be more interesting.
I do too.
We're going to get into some semantics.
For sure. For sure. Yeah.
Hope you're here for that because that's what we're up to today for sure.
Yeah.
Immersion obviously is something that gets talked about a lot, especially at Walt Disney World and themed entertainment stuff in general now.
Sure.
Because, you know, larger than life, detail oriented design is kind of the goal of theme parks, and applying that to, you know, now almost everything that's being built for theme parks is IP based. So now bringing those IP and intellectual property details to life within the theme park.
Sure.
This whole kind of race was started by the Harry Potter expansion.
You think so?
This newest wave of like hyper immersion.
Yeah, where you stepped into the movie.
Yeah, I think that is a universal, like they get to claim that they started that for sure. Because J.K. Rowling ended up going with Universal instead of Disney for creative control purposes. It ended up being that Universal got to build this super hyper realistic, you know, Hogwarts setting situation, and now they've got 2 lands in their theme park just devoted to Harry Potter.
Yeah,
because it was such a runaway success.
Right.
So on the heels of that, Disney was forced to kind of try to adapt, which is something that they are, you know, typically they're the ones leading the pack.
Yeah.
But here they tried to match that with some of the newer additions, and we'll go into them a little later and see how successful they were at kind of catching up to the new swing of things.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense now that you mention it. And this is something that we talk about a lot. Like when we're doing dining reviews, like if you follow us on YouTube, you've seen some of our dining reviews, whether something is immersive is something we always talk about.
Yeah, it's a huge factor in ambiance, which is one of the like main categories that we think of when we're trying to rate these dining experiences in a meaningful way. So obviously it's something that is heavily thought about, and whether or not it lands is honestly up to a variety of, you know, factors. And some of the ones that I judged my stuff on were a cohesive sense of 360-degree theming. So like everywhere you look, up, down, left, right, bottom, it's all theme. The integration of the theme of the land with attractions, whether or not that's like a seamless harmonic type of thing. Details authentic to the imagined land. So like some lands, there's really, I would say Disney, this is one of their hallmarks, is no matter what the land is, they try to do some really neat little detail things, but whether or not those details really live up to the imagined space, I think is a sign of a really cool immersive land. But in some cases with smaller lands, even in Storybook Circus, they've got peanuts in the ground.
Oh my god, yeah, I love that.
You know what I mean? So it is cool that Disney puts that kind of thought into everything. And then the last thing that I was trying to consider with this list were the integrations of cast members into the experience. Where
interesting.
Some lands, the cast member costumes or backstories or whatever kind of play a little bit more of a role in the space than other lands. It's that way with food and dining too. Some lands, the food and dining is kind of just shoehorned in, and sometimes it's this beautiful harmonic relationship with the food and beverage locations and the rest of the land where it all feels like one thing.
Where would you say it's shoehorned in?
Well, here, I actually have a short list of things that I consider to be not immersive right now.
Okay.
Just to offer the opposite end of the scale.
Okay, I know. Okay, go ahead.
Tomorrowland and Magic Kingdom really stands out to me because it's almost that there was no attempt made to make the food futuristic in a land themed to the future.
Right.
So it makes
you could
no
get
sense.
a hot dog though.
Well, you could get a hot dog. You could get a hot dog. And
Or a
also
pretzel.
there are race cars in
There
that
are
land.
race cars.
So like for me,
so
it just ranks so low.
It's funny because even if you're like, they wound up going with this like 1950s view of the future. Even in that, race cars don't really work.
It just is a mess.
Yeah.
Especially right next to Tron, which does look very futuristic.
I just don't know why they don't call that Fantasyland.
It,
or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If the border of Fantasyland and Tomorrowland were like diagonal, then it kind of would work.
Right. And it also...
Because then that would be part of Fantasyland, and maybe driving a car as a 5-year-old is fantasy. You know what I mean?
It toes the same line that when we had... the Nautilus, when we had 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea as an attraction. It was kind of in that backspace between Tomorrow, kind of set behind Tomorrowland and Fantasyland, where it could kind of fall into either. I honestly feel like the Speedway is a good fit for nothing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't fit Fantasyland. If you're going
to put it somewhere, it should be Fantasyland or maybe... Never mind.
They could put, like, if they rethemed it, they could put it in a bunch of places.
Yeah.
But as it sits currently, it's not very fantastical and it's not very forward thinking. So it's just kind of floating out there in the middle of nothing.
Yeah.
Which, like, I think severely impacts your immersion.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, for that...
Luckily, it's not in the middle of Tomorrowland.
Right. Oh, my gosh, that would be awful.
The thing that's in the middle of Tomorrowland, I think, would be Astro Orbiters, and that does fit.
Yes, nicely enough.
Yeah.
And then
I think the Sunny Eclipse cosmic rays, that does kind of fit, even though the food doesn't fit.
Yes.
But they used to have colored ketchup and stuff.
Right.
Very futuristic.
But I would say, even in that space, like, details-wise, it's not... It doesn't really fit the brief in the way that some of these... If the goal is immersion, I would not say that cosmic rays immerses you in the future. Do you know what I mean?
Right. But we're talking about now the future as seen in the 1950s, right?
Do you get that from cosmic rays?
I mean, I do from Cosmic Ray himself. Sunny Eclipse, I mean.
Yes. I would say Sunny is absolutely the best part of that restaurant and the only thing that makes it, what it is. So, in my book, that's not the most immersive experience. And the only other thing in Walt Disney World this low on the immersion spectrum...
they do call where you pick up your food a bay or whatever.
Ooh! Nice sign. At Walt Disney World, though, the only other thing that stands out in my mind, well, there are a couple of being so disjointed thematically. Animation Courtyard in Hollywood Studios is such a mess. It is
such a mess.
Disney Junior on one side, Star Wars Launch Bay at the back, and the abandoned Little Mermaid show on the other side. Yeah. It makes no sense, and, you know... Those types of things normally don't happen in Walt Disney World, so pointing them out here gives you some good contrast.
Do you feel like it used to have a theme back there?
Well, it made a lot more sense when everything was animation, because that used to be the animation studio where they would work and draw things for movies.
Yeah, you're right.
So, like, that made sense when it was animation, the art in the back, Disney Junior, modern animation on the side, and Little Mermaid, Renaissance animation on the left. It all kind of made a little bit of sense, but now that they kind of just threw Star Wars back there,
I know,
doesn't add up to me.
Yeah.
So those are some examples of the lower
Those are good examples. Thank you. I was like trying to think. I feel like they do a pretty good job with the restaurants and stuff like that. Like, that's
why it was hard for me to narrow down the top, because there are a lot of good, you know, really well thought out themed spaces in Walt Disney World. So when there's something on the low end, it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, you're right. Right. I mean, even the whole front of Epcot doesn't have a theme right now.
You know, that is one, I think it's a little, even though we know what's going to be there, we haven't felt it yet. So I felt that I wanted to leave it out of my thing. But, like, as it currently stands, that is, like, the most disjointed. There is no immersion. It's just construction walls thing in all of them.
Well, I mean, even around it, though. You know what I mean? You go from Nemo to the land. I don't feel like there's a theme over there. Do you? What's that going to be called?
Which one?
That side. Nemo, Land, Figment.
Figment is part of World Celebration. Nemo is part of world nature,
Okay.
which is
The
the
water.
land and the sea, and Moana. That will all be. See how confusing this is already? And then world
Oh,
discovery
yeah. You'd think I
is.
would have learned this by now, but I'm like not interested.
And then world discovery is Guardians and Mission Space.
What's test track?
That's also world discovery.
What are you discovering?
How fast it is to go on the highway.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, also I would consider that to be a little bit of a mess. Hopefully, as they open stuff back up, it starts to feel like there's a little bit more flow, because I think one of the major things that this joint had, other than the fact that the themes are kind of crammed together, is the fact that you have to walk around a huge construction wall to get from place to place, and hopefully pathways will make that easier, but it remains to be seen until it's opened, you know?
Sure. All right.
Trying to keep my expectations managed.
Mm-hmm.
Hard.
It doesn't sound like that's going to be the best themed immersive, but maybe that's not what they're going for. Right? Yeah. It's like kind of a mishmash of rides. Good rides, fun rides, somewhere I want to be. I'm not saying, but immersion wise, maybe not. So.
Right, and they're going as far as to call them neighborhoods, you know, as opposed to lands, which I think is fair, because Future World was always considered one land with different kind of parts. They didn't even break it up by, you know, thing. It was just Future World East and Future World West, if you could remember, when everything was described that way. Now they're trying to go more specific with the names of the neighborhoods, but I would honestly just prefer they called that whole half-world celebration. You know what I mean? Same. Or something, or world discovery, whatever they want to call it, so that the other, like the symmetry between World Showcase and World Discovery. I loved the symmetry of the back half is Future World, or the back half is World Showcase, the front half is Future World. Appreciate the marvels
simplicity
of, you know, traditional, culturally authentic creation, and then the other half is the future of creation. You know? Cool. Interesting. But the way that they've done it now is definitely a little confusing, and it doesn't exactly feel like the same vibe walking all the way through. So I get what you mean, that it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
But there are things that are immaculately themed at Walt Disney World, with tons of detail and cohesion and the same sense of, you know, belonging. And those
Epcot individual rides have immersion in and of itself, just not the land.
Yes.
So
today we're
not
talking about
making my
lands.
list.
Right. All right. Well, do you want me to start you off with the lowest thing on my list?
Yeah.
Frontierland.
Okay.
I've got Frontierland down here. This honestly would have been higher back in 1971 or whatever, because it was a little bit more of a fully realized concept than it is right now for a few reasons. But I will say the Frontierland main stretch is very immersive.
Yeah, like, I agree. I was thinking about that.
Walking from Liberty Square back over to the Splash Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain area of things, that feels very much like one thing, which is why it lands my list at all, because I really do feel like when you're there, the music is there, the country bears are walking around, it is one full vibe. Yeah, even the like the food carts have the whole like wagony look, you know? Yeah, McDonald's Fry Wagon used to be back there. Now they just sell whatever out of there. But I remember when that covered wagon was purpose-built for French fries. Yeah. But anyway, I like that there's some moving energy going around here. The country bears either on the roof or on the little balcony of their attraction waving down at you, or just roaming around, kind of meet and greeting with people. That's nice. It adds a little something to the experience. And Walt Disney World is very short on just like walk around characters. Yeah. So I think that it's a nice touch. It is. Even if you're not the biggest Country Bear fan. Sure. I would prefer if there was a little bit more like sheriff and outlaw live stuff going on. Yeah. There used to be like a shootout. Yeah. That would happen on the rooftop of Frontierland. Obviously that's not a thing anymore for a bevy of reasons, but it would be cool for there to be like some type of staged intermittent outlaw sheriff interaction or something like that. I feel like they could do something in some way that worked. Right. Another thing that's got a dent in this for me is that the riverboat runs right beside. I was going to ask about that. You don't think it fits? I like that it adds some kinetic energy to the space, but I think it takes you out of the Frontiersy mentality of it. It's the right time period, though. Right. At least. And I think that is the rationale for it, of why they can kind of live in harmony. But I also, like, I don't think you would see like a big old riverboat like that in like a Western movie or something. You know what I mean? Like it breaks it just a little bit, but not.
There was one in Maverick.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
I think. Anyway.
But yeah, that always to me never really fit right in, but it was allowable. The thing that right now that's making this a little bit more of a mess to me is the whole Tiana situation.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's in Frontierland and it is not the frontier. So until they either make that whole section into a New Orleans inspired thing.
Is that what you think is going to happen?
That's what I hope
it's right
happens.
Next to Thunder.
Yeah, that's the tricky bit, isn't it?
It sure is.
That's why.
And Thunder's on the other side.
This was a big complaint from people when the Tiana thing got announced. Was that there are no mountains in the bayou and this is Frontierland and it doesn't make any sense. I hope that when they carve out the space around the attraction more, it will flow and make sense. But if they're going to try to fold...
I can't even imagine how it would.
Princess
now
and
that
the
you
Frog,
mention it.
When they try to fold Princess and the Frog into Frontierland, I think it's a little clunky.
Yeah.
You know? So that's why it's very low on my list.
I didn't even think about that. Such a good point. It doesn't fit at all.
We'll see.
I can't wait for the ride. I can't wait. So excited.
So here's the deal. We don't normally get into rumor and speculation on this show very much. Well, sometimes we do. But recently people have seen a lot of Imagineers shuffling around Pecos Bill. And the idea is that they're thinking they're going to retheme that. Uh-huh. That might be interesting.
Which is funny because even though I'm not a fan of Pecos Bill's food, that it does fit really well with that's one of the things that when I was thinking about theming, and this is on my list as well, it's like 9.
Gotcha. Also low, I see.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, that restaurant really does fit.
Yes, the incorporation of food and beverage. That restaurant, it like, say what you want about the quality of the Mexican food being served, which is at best questionable, in my opinion. Yeah. But the detail of the space, the flowers everywhere, that back room of Pecos Bill where it's like an outdoor scene that Disney does so well. Yeah. I do think the space is beautiful, but apparently it's up for reimagining potentially. So we'll see if that actually happens.
Wait, so people saw some Imagineers hanging out around there?
It's less that they saw some Imagineers hanging out around there, as this is what happened with Wonders of Life too, is there are some people who are very well abreast of who is who in the Walt Disney World situation. So if people know that this is a senior Imagineer project leader making multiple trips into the same location, they can kind of get a feel for what is at least being looked at. That's all there is they think it's being looked at. I think it's worth imagining what they might be doing, but I don't want to get too far ahead of what actually is reality either.
I mean, I would love a Tiana restaurant.
I don't see how they're not building a Tiana restaurant. Either. Disneyland's getting Tiana's Palace. Remember us over here.
We're getting beignets though, right?
But that's not confirmed.
Oh my god, I thought that was confirmed.
I don't think so. I would love for us to have beignets.
I'm gonna be mad.
I think the only thing confirmed is the ride. I really do.
But they're putting up all of that Tiana's food signs, and I just thought...
Yeah, it would make sense.
Right. And I get that that's part of the theming. I guess,
That's part of the story of the attraction.
Yeah, I know.
You saw the water towers up?
Yeah.
With its little tiara.
You sent a picture. I appreciate that. That looks awesome.
I do think I think that the tiara is very cute.
Yeah.
The tiara water tower. I'll try not to think about what it was supposed to be. It's very difficult.
Yeah, they had some concept art that is not coming to fruition, so.
That's always tough.
Yeah, I just wish we kind of wouldn't see it, but then I'm sure I would say the opposite if we weren't told anything.
Well, if we're not being told anything, though, we are the type of people that like to run with our imaginations, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's more fun than letting us see their imagination and it not being what comes
happening.
Out. You know what I mean? Yeah, that can be tough.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, are you ready to mosey out of Frontierland, or do you have anything else to add?
No, that really, I think, like the Pecos Bills, the Country Bears, you're right, the fact that there's some characters. They had Woody out there sometimes,
Yeah.
which really fits.
I
haven't seen him out there in a hot minute.
They have their own Toy Story Land now, obviously.
I guess that's it.
But I really think that I would love to see a Toy Story something happen in there, because
really doing a Woody and Jessie something like you're talking about Outlaw, and that could be a fun toy way to do it without it being like guns and stuff.
That is a great idea, great point. That it's a totally safe way to approach that dynamic.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, they've got the shooting thing still, the shooting game,
the shooting arcade, which is free now.
Is it?
Yeah.
No way.
So yeah,
I hadn't even gone up there because I thought it still cost money. Yeah. I don't think, and it's not really my thing anymore. I liked it when I was a kid.
I'm not really a shooting person at all, so it doesn't really speak to me at all, but it does feel like an authentic
It feels
inclusion.
Like it makes sense. It also has the history, makes a lot of sense.
And the actual diorama in there is quite beautiful. Yeah. So, that's cool.
All right.
What's on your list?
So at the bottom of mine, although not saying I don't absolutely love, this is like one of my favorite areas of Disney World, but I put Main Street.
Main Street's my
way up there.
No.
Good.
The same spot as yours.
Yeah, because I love it, and like the shops are immersive. Obviously, there are parts that really aren't. Like Tony's Town Square does feel a little shoehorned.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't really make sense, does it?
No, like I get that. So I think the feeling of having a corner restaurant on your main street does make sense, but I don't think the Lady and the Tramp bit of it is a little that know, especially I think the concern there is that like Splash Mountain turning into Tiana's Bayou Adventure, which is set in New Orleans, the restaurant that they are emulating from the film is very
New York
distinctly set.
Yeah.
So, like, the fact that it's now tacked onto turn of the century Main Street,
right.
It makes it, there's a little bit of a mental barrier there, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the outside facade does a good job of blending in. So, you take that for what it is.
Maybe Starbucks.
Yes.
Same kind of situation. Although they put it in what used to be the Main Street Bakery. And it's still called that, right? From the outside. I think the ice cream parlor does fit really, really well.
Right.
Casey's Corner even fits really well.
I was delighted we were in one of the shops recently and we took notice of some of the photos on the wall, and we were like, that's interesting, to the cast member who let us know that it was the reason that there were all of these group sports teams shots all over the walls of this particular section of the Emporium was because that section was devoted thematically to Walt Disney's passion for youth organized sports.
Yeah.
Who knew?
She did.
But like that level of detail and theming in the Main Street shops is what gets this stuff like that.
Right.
Gets
and
this
if
on my list.
you're walking through the Emporium and you're thinking, well, this isn't very a turn of the century, look up.
Yeah.
Because up and the walls, especially above like head level, that's all very themed.
Yeah, they've got displays.
The outside of the shops, like they still have the sign for the magic shop, the windows, all of that. I think that is pretty immersive.
The signage, the facades, all of that stuff is like
Dapper
a home run. Yeah, so much movement and energy between the Dapper Dans, the trolley show, all of the vehicles coming up and down Main Street all the time. It really adds a sense of it being alive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do you mean for like parade vehicles or?
Well, yes, there's obviously the parades and the cavalcades. I actually think those might take away a little bit from the immersion.
Right.
But back in the day, there was like a double-decker bus.
Yes,
there's all kinds of stuff.
But there's not.
Now it's just more the trolley. Do they bring out the trolley car to do the trolley song performance anymore, or is it just
I haven't seen it, but that doesn't mean they're not still doing it occasionally.
I feel like I've seen it fairly recently. But
I was just talking to my dad about that because we were on Main Street and he was pointing to the track that runs along Main Street, and he was like, does anything even go on this anymore? And I'm like, I don't think so.
No, not really.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a shame. But
there were the horses and stuff too.
Yes.
Back in the day.
There's still a lot of life and movement there, though, which I appreciate.
And you
Not
really
as
can
much
imagine.
As there used to be, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's so crowded. I don't know how anything could get through.
Yeah, it is like now the
and
crowd
the photographers are all set up
right.
there. Yeah.
The photo passes up and down Main Street. I do think
but that's why it's at the bottom of the list.
Right.
But it's still, you know what I mean? There's still aspects of it that are very immersive.
Yeah, I began to think, well, it immediately has an immersion kind of disruption with it being a turn of the century street with a medieval castle at the end. But I will say something that has over time, I would think, developed is that you're not necessarily just being immersed in the turn of the century. You're being immersed in what it means to be in Walt Disney World. You know what I mean? In the Magic Kingdom. Like, in that way, it all really works. You accept it, you forego the disbelief, and you just kind of, you're like, oh, there's the castle, there's Main Street, I'm at Walt Disney World. I wouldn't have said,
what did you say? What did you call the castle?
Medieval.
I think more fanciful.
Sure.
Oh my gosh, I cannot talk.
Fanciful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that it was modeled after the Norse Vines theme, but now, you know, we've seen it pink and rose gold and all kinds of stuff. I think fanciful might be more, but yeah, anyway.
A gateway into Fantasyland.
Do you consider the castle part of Main Street?
I mean, I consider the castle to be the gateway to Fantasyland. Okay. So in my brain, it's Fantasyland.
There you go.
But as far as it being sitting at the end of Main Street, I think that combination is like uniquely Disney, you know, whether it's land or world or whatever. I think the strange pairing of this giant castle and this turn of the century street, it only makes sense in the context of being a Disney theme park. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed.
So, you know, that you get points for that. And of course, how could we forget they pump and smell here? Yeah. You know, whether or not you want to say that's for immersion or a marketing tactic. Yeah. I guess that's left up to you, but it definitely adds something, so I'll take it there. I also love the soundtrack on Main Street.
Yeah, I do too. That's one that I could really like listen to on, you know, I could have it playing.
Yeah, it's a great balance of there's some old school Rodgers and Hammerstein musical stuff in there, like Surrey with the Fringe on Top played as an instrumental from Oklahoma is in that loop.
Weird.
I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, I do too. It's just weird.
Yes. And then
but I associate that song with When Harry Met Sally.
Sure.
The movie, because he sings it in the movie. Anyway, go on.
Great song. And then it's got things as recent as Married Life from Up, the little piano number from Up that gets dispersed in there. So it's a cool blend of classic and modern classic, you know,
sounding,
emulating things. So I think it blends really well.
Yeah. All right. So that covered your 9 and 10. We just flipped them.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Main Street, walking right down the middle of Main Street, USA.
Yeah.
Do you want me to give another one, or do you want?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, my number, whatever this is
8
is Discovery Island in Animal Kingdom.
Okay.
This is the entrance land to Animal Kingdom. There's so much that I enjoy about this as an entrance into a theme park.
Okay.
First of all, in the way that you get on a monorail or a ferry to go into Magic Kingdom, you take a trek, like a foot journey, to get into Animal Kingdom. Yeah. You go through this lush foliage everywhere, these huge overgrown environments, animals. The music is nothing but like drumming or animal sounds. The rockwork, the footpath beneath you is like natural looking. It's got rocks in it. It is like a fully realized entrance into the theme park. Like you're getting lost and going on an adventure. And then when you get out on the other side, you see the Tree of Life and this beautiful, sprawling, you know, environment that is the opening of Animal Kingdom. And it is very whimsical. It loses points for me on a couple of levels. Number one being, I hate that when you walk out into that area in front of the Tree of Life, it is just an absolute sea of people going every direction.
Right.
I feel like the crowd flow situation almost takes you out of the moment a little bit.
It's like the hub in front of the castle, except for smaller, so it's more like condensed.
Yes, and it's people right on top of each other for a lot of it. So, that for me, it takes me out of it a little bit, but environment-wise, I think it really nails it.
Yeah. You've got the river.
Right, the river, even looking down at the dock that used to be for the Discovery Island riverboats, which is now kind of overgrown, which I think almost like fits. That's something really nice about Animal Kingdom, is that stuff can get overgrown or mossy or whatever.
Right.
And that's just the vibe.
Right.
So it's easy to be thematically appropriate because nature overgrows and the park is nature themed, so it is what it is.
Right.
Discovery Island also, I love the shops in here. It's
me too.
Discovery Traders on one side and Island Mercantile on the other side, and they are like brightly painted.
Yeah.
Lots of carved wood detailing.
Right.
Lots of like painted stuff that I really enjoy. I think at times it skews a little like 90s theme park Busch Gardens-y at some points, with like, in terms of signage, some of the like food and beverage kiosks and counters, they give a little bit of that like almost like hokey tacky like 90s nature park thing, which I don't necessarily dislike, but it does feel maybe a little bit disconnected from the super authentic theming of other lands in Animal Kingdom.
I think their stuff is a step up from Busch Gardens, but can you give me an example?
I would say even in places like Flame Tree Barbecue, I would say those things are more like, come get some chicken wings and we're gonna call it Flame Tree Barbecue, and it doesn't really have total synergy. It just kind of is, well, there's a barbecue restaurant, we have to make it nature-y-ish. I will say the actual space of that restaurant, the outdoor section of it, is extremely, I would say, immersive, because you're sitting right on the water. You see all of these beautiful
and the food's
trees.
pretty good.
And the food is pretty good.
Yeah.
But I would say overall, it's not quite as, such a robust synergy as it is like if you're in whatever Galaxy's Edge and you're walking into the docking bay or whatever, that's a full experience. You know what I mean? There has to be a scale,
right?
So for this, it doesn't totally accomplish all of that necessarily, but I think it does what it has to do, and that's why it's on my list, because overall, I find it to be very immersive, especially when you walk in and there are these big birds flying all around, Kevin's walking around, the Tree of Life is there. If it's Christmas time, there are those penguin puppets that are walking around.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of stuff moving. Maybe a flotilla with characters is going by the water, where the Discovery Riverboat path used to be. There's a lot of movement, I think. And obviously those really beautiful animal exhibit trails that kind of wrap around underneath the Tree of Life. Great spots for photos, great spots to kind of cool down or hang out for a minute with benches and stuff. It's interactive in that way. You can explore it and get lost in it like you are supposed to do at Animal Kingdom. Yeah. So it checks a bunch of boxes.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't put it on my list, but it does make a lot of sense to me. So should I go with my number 8?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So number 8 for me is Adventureland.
All right.
Did this make your list at all?
It didn't, and I can go into why in a little bit, but first I want to hear about what you enjoy about it.
So I just feel like with like the Jungle Cruise area, I can see where there are some like disjointed parts to it, but the area where there's the Jungle Cruise and then the Tiki Room and where you get the Dole Whip, to me, it does all have kind of that Tiki Room aesthetic that's really fun. In this one, they do have stuff in the concrete also, like gemstones and stuff like that,
which I love.
Yeah, I do too. Very extra. The foliage that they use with the palm trees, but they're kind of like jungly. Yes,
the horticulture in this area of the park is so like specific, intentional, recognizable.
Yeah. So the color scheme. I just feel like it's not as much that I feel like I stepped into, I guess, a jungle, if that's what they're going for, but I definitely know that I've stepped into Adventureland.
Right. It is totally
I could even imagine them putting the Indiana Jones ride somewhere in there. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But yeah, Pirates is a little disjointed back there, although I get why it fits.
Mm-hmm. Certainly adventuresome.
Yes, but it doesn't really go with the rest of it feels kind of jungly, don't you think?
Yeah, that honestly is just why it didn't make my list, because like of the only
I guess the Aladdin thing isn't really
right. The only thing that's joining Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and Polynesia is the spirit of adventure is a little bit of a flimsy concept to me.
You're right.
Especially with the giant Aladdin themed spinning attraction in the middle of the land, right next to like Polynesian Isle and stuff. Like it just, there's something about that feels forced to me. But in the same way that walking down Main Street to a giant castle is its own thing, Adventureland, without a doubt, is its own spirit. The color palettes, the feeling, the music, like, you know, whether or not it is built on, I think the mishmashing of cultures together in the spirit of like, these are all just other places, it's exotic, is a little like not strong enough for me to make the land like cohesive.
Right.
But I think for 1971.
Sure. And see, I'm just thinking of it as Adventureland and being immersed in Adventureland.
Right.
Where,
and it does do that.
Like in other parks, if you're in an area, I just feel like you might not realize you left that area.
Sure.
You know what I mean? You know when you left Adventureland.
But like when I go from the Polynesia side / Middle East side of Adventureland and I go into the pirate part, that to me does feel like two different lands.
It does. That the pirate part is the part that feels a little most disjointed to me. Because the Aladdin, they kind of did what's wrong?
I just realized that they're about to have a big brain moment, and they could make Pirates New Orleans.
Oh yeah.
Just like they do at Disneyland.
New Orleans back there.
They could with okay, so this is probably what everyone is thinking they're going to do.
Yeah,
they're gonna make Pecos Bill's Tiana's Palace
/ Blue Bayou, maybe.
Right, and then have Tiana's Bayou Adventure back there,
and that's rectangle. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Pirates be set back to New Orleans like it was in Disneyland.
Right.
Actually, I'm starting to see that actually would help Adventureland a lot.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Right.
To make it more concentrated on that one area and just take the Aladdin ride out of
there. They're not going to take the Aladdin ride out
I know they're not, but it would help the flow of that land so much.
It is hard to get a Dole Whip and there's nowhere to go eat it.
They should just put a big, beautiful fountain in there or something.
They're not going to do that.
They're not going to do that. They want the capacity of the Aladdin ride, but I'm telling them right now that it's hurting my guest experience.
All right. But next to the Aladdin ride, having all of the, like, I guess, Middle Eastern themed, like, shops with the big, bright canopies and stuff like that, I like that. You know what I mean?
It is beautiful.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
I just don't know, like, it is beautiful, but to me, like, just throw it in Arabia into, like, Asia and Africa, which is, like, the Jungle Cruise. You know, to me, that has always been a little bit of a, like, head-scratcher. Because it was shoehorned in. It didn't start until Aladdin came out.
Right.
And then they built the bazaar, and they built the ride there in the middle. So it was something they just kind of shoved on in there. I didn't realize that as a child.
Because it was always there. Yeah, I'd maybe like to see pictures of it before Aladdin was added, because that was before I remember.
Yeah. Adventureland is its own thing, though. And going over that bridge into Adventureland, it truly is like, you're just in that side of the park, you know? It feels so far removed from things like Tomorrowland or whatever.
But I guess it's just because it's always been Adventureland to me that stuff works for me. You know what I mean? Like in the Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse, like in all of
that's where they're going to put the Indiana Jones ride. They're going to knock that thing to the ground.
They still have that in Disneyland, though.
Yeah, they made it Tarzan, though.
Yeah, well, ours was Tarzan for a while.
Really?
Wasn't it?
I don't remember.
I think so.
That's fun. That's very adventurous.
Yeah.
Tarzan. I can't think of a more like adventurous.
It's weird that they changed it back, but I'm going to double check my to make sure I'm not lying to you again.
Do you want me to move on?
Yes. Although I will say, like, that bridge, you walk over the bridge and under the thing, and right now, because are we leaving those gold statues up forever?
They're not going anywhere.
The little Abu up there,
Cute.
When I walk to that like over that bridge to that section where the Abu's there, that feeling is what made me think, oh, this should probably make my list, because I feel like I'm in Adventureland, and then it's everywhere.
Yeah,
it's the tree, the Swiss Family tree on the left, and then it's Orange Bird on the right. And I get that Orange Bird probably makes no sense with the rest, but it works for me.
It's Adventureland
to me. Yeah, it's like you were saying with the castle.
Yeah, I totally get it. It's like its own package deal.
Yeah,
that makes so much sense to me. The next one on my list is Liberty Square.
Okay, this is on my list too.
Liberty Square.
Let me see where it is on my list.
You wouldn't think that this would necessarily make any list because it's not the most exciting land of any park, but I would say it is so thematically well thought out that it's a little boring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's themed to American history, which, you know, is not exactly necessarily going to be the most thrilling idea for a theme park, but I don't mind that because they already have that. You know what I mean? They've got Big Thunder Mountain and Space Mountain, and they've got their, you know, more adventurous things. So when you've got Liberty Square and you can kind of focus more on delivering a quality, authentic version of this world you're creating, be it, you know, colonial America or whatever, it allows them to focus a little bit more on the details. So I think the Hall of Presidents building is like immaculate. It's beautiful in there. I think that obviously the riverboat is like, it makes so much sense in this, you know, this area, because I feel like it's so classic Americana,
right?
And it really ties in. I like that you can like hang in those things where you put your arms and your head through, like as an interactive. I
did that as a child. Now I'm looking at it going, what in the world?
Same. But it's so like old school theme park to me that it makes sense in Liberty Square. And also, I guess we should shout out the fact that they have that brown river that runs along the walkway in Liberty Square.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Back in the day, people used to throw their waste out of buckets onto the street, and there would be drainages in the footpaths or in the roads that would all kind of drain everything out. So for cultural authenticity reasons, historical accuracy reasons,
confirmed?
This is a confirmed thing from Imagineers that they painted like a brown footpath down the Liberty Square
maybe
area.
It wasn't ever Tarzan's treehouse
to me. Well, it definitely wasn't Disneyland.
Yeah. Maybe that's just what I'm thinking of.
I so rarely went into it when I was a kid that I could not even tell you what it was.
I've been into it like 5 times. I must be thinking of the Disneyland version.
Maybe. The only thing about Liberty Square, well, there are a couple things that I don't super love about it, is I miss when there was some more kinetic energy in there. Like, I really liked having the Muppets shouting out American history from the windows,
and it really fit.
Yep, it was light.
Why? I still am mind blown about why they took that away.
I don't know. Maybe they didn't like the crowding of people or something. But honestly, to me, those types of things are signature to Walt Disney World. It's like streetmosphere, as they called it at Hollywood Studios. Just having, you know, some bustling going on, having some life to it. I absolutely agree with you that there should be Hamilton in here somewhere. That feels like a no-brainer of how to kind of make it exciting.
Me too, but when I said that was before you told me that they don't actually own Hamilton.
Right. Yeah. But they are best friends with Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Right. That's why I thought that they had bought, because it's on Disney Plus.
Right.
And Lin-Manuel Miranda has now done 2 major all the songs from major animated Disney features, in addition to Mary Poppins,
right?
Too. Anyway,
Yeah, so he's like super buddy with Disney, so it
Yeah.
feels like as the creator of Hamilton, that would give him some sway. But yeah, the only other thing that I feel to be maybe detracting from this is that it is like a haunted mansion vehicle
The
land.
Haunted Mansion, yeah, the Haunted Mansion is the only part that doesn't really fit, huh?
Yeah, and I would. So the idea of Liberty Square and the idea of Haunted Mansion are two completely different things to me,
Mm-hmm.
and making the house kind of vaguely fit the period, in my opinion, is really not enough.
Right.
To get it connected.
Right. Haunted Mansion is the only part that I would say really doesn't fit. The two restaurants back there, Columbia Harbor House and Liberty Tree.
And the Golden Horseshoe that
I
or
think that's Frontierland, but it's the literal same food.
It is a great, in my opinion, it's a great transition piece.
Yeah.
Because it could kind of be either.
Sure.
You know?
But the two that I've just mentioned, I think fit fantastically well.
Totally.
Like, I mean, if you haven't been up in Columbia Harbor House, going up to the second floor and seeing all of the old stuff, but then with the like nautical
totally.
twist. Did you mention the bathroom? Sorry, I was reading.
No.
So there. Okay, they say there's no bathrooms in this area because that's authentic. There were no bathrooms.
I think I've heard that.
Yeah, but when I said this to Bailey was like, but. And then named 5 other things that are there that shouldn't be there.
Fair.
And I was like, so maybe that's just what they said. You know what I mean?
Perhaps.
So yeah, there's the tree that is in the middle, Liberty Tree, I'm sure is what it's called, that has the 13 lanterns for the 13 original colonies. Mm-hmm. It's just like a bunch of really thought out, detail-y stuff.
I like it over there.
Including the bathroom thing, if you want to take that for a real reason to not put bathrooms back there.
Sure.
I love the Christmas shop.
Yeah. Oh, the Christmas shop. Now that is wonderful.
Yeah. You guys know how I am about Christmas, but this is like ye old little Christmas shop.
Ye old little Christmas. The reason that Liberty Square is not higher on my list, other than the things that we've already mentioned, are because it's kind of like its own little small corner too.
It's very small.
It's not like a vast, sprawling type of thing. And it's also, I take Liberty Square as something that kind of like had to exist for them to put Haunted Mansion in there.
Okay.
I don't know what's keeping them hanging on to majorly transforming this corner of the park.
Because there's a lot of stuff that fits. What would you transform it to?
I don't know. And I'm just saying I don't think that Haunted Mansion fits, and Haunted Mansion is by far the most popular thing over there.
I think eventually the Hall of Presidents will go away.
Right. So like,
which is the most fitting attraction back there.
Exactly. So because Haunted Mansion is the only thing holding it together, in my opinion. Like, it's the only thing that keeps people coming through there. So now that they've got Haunted Mansion and a Haunted Mansion shop over there, and that's the main draw of Liberty Square, it seems weird to me that it's still Liberty Square. It almost feels like they should just refigure what Haunted Mansion fits into and start again. Unless villains. Maybe. Unless they're going to reimagine Hall of Presidents into something more compelling for modern audiences, and Morgan already cracked the code on that one. Hamilton. So, for me, there's a little bit of an imbalance.
Hamilton's less controversial. It's got awesome music that you'll be singing all day. You could do the Muppets Hamilton.
Wow.
Isn't that our thing?
That is a fan project that was made. Somebody recorded an entire album of the entire Hamilton soundtrack, but voiced by Muppets. Lovely.
Go fans.
Go fans, go. But yeah, I would love to see more Muppets, and I would love to see more Hamilton, whether they're together or not.
Or separate, because
that was IP I fully enjoyed being in the parks. I was like, wow,
and
perfect.
The Muppets thing was slightly educational.
Yeah.
Hamilton is
the Ride of Paul Revere they would
educational.
do.
Yeah. So, I mean, great. You know what I mean?
Great. I would definitely spruce up the land a bit, in my opinion.
And give you other reasons to go back there other than the Haunted Mansion.
Right.
Or Columbia Harbor House, which we do like.
Right. It's Hamilton themed in there, is what I said to Morgan
Yes.
when we first walked in. It's like that colonial nautical style that like the entire Hamilton set is based in.
It's Hamilton themed.
You know, it feels ready for...
Yeah.
It's like it was made to... That land was made to have some Hamilton
right
stuff.
And Liberty Tree isn't bad. It's kind of basic. My parents really like it.
I think for what it makes a lot of sense.
It does it makes all the sense.
Right.
Yeah, I wish they would have kept up with the theming a little bit better in that restaurant, because it is themed well, but it's also a little boring. And I feel like they could have done a little bit more.
Yeah, fair. I mean, especially by modern, immersion standards.
And that's what I mean. Obviously, you have to keep it in the right time period and everything, but I don't know.
But like plussed up. I know what you mean. Like it could stand for a little bit more of a, totally comprehensive approach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of spaces in Walt Disney World like that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I totally get it. Do you want to give us one? We're going to have to make this a two-parter.
Okay.
Do you want to give us one more before we go?
Sure. I wonder if you're going to agree with this or think I'm out of my flipping mind.
That's the beauty and the fun of the podcast.
Okay. So I put Dino Land.
I think you're out of your mind.
Okay, but hear me out. When you're in the middle of it, right? When you're in the middle of it, it's like you're in this carnival.
Uh-huh.
And the fact that you told me this whole elaborate backstory of dinosaurs.
Look what I've done.
Yeah, that made it like all fit together in a way that makes me go, okay, you're really here. You know what I mean? Like this all makes sense.
Uh-huh.
It took the shoehorning of that ride into this carnival area and made it make sense. Mm-hmm. So you did this. This is your fault.
It is my fault.
But I'm not talking about Dino Land now because they took out Primeval World and it's kind of a nightmare right now.
Yeah.
But I mean like circa 10 years ago.
Sure.
When there was like Lucky walking around back there and you've got all of the dinosaur themed carnival stuff and then this dinosaur ride and then the bone area. Like everything fit into this weird dinosaur carnival. It's weird,
yes,
but it all fit.
Yes, story-wise, totally.
And the ground has its, you know what I mean? Like everything was. I just feel like you're really in it.
It is.
Now you tell everybody why I'm crazy.
No, it's like, and that what you were saying is exactly what Disney was hoping for.
Yeah.
So like, of course, it adds up. The context of the creation of Dino Land USA is kind of Disney cracking the code on how to make a budget-friendly, immersive experience.
Okay.
So Michael Eisner is CEO of Walt Disney World, or CEO of the Walt Disney Company. Euro Disneyland is a massive failure, so they have to find ways to build new parks and create new lands with some budget considerations. Uh-huh. They found out that the best ways to make this happen are to go the routes of either movie studio, which you could just build big buildings, slap a studio sign on it, and it looks super themed. So they did that. And they did boardwalks and carnivals, which are, it's easy to make those very immersively themed because what they are in the first place is not super high budget.
Right.
So things like California Adventures Paradise Pier got built. Things like Dino Land USA and Animal Kingdom got built because it's super easy to make a very immersive carnival kind of for cheap, and Animal Kingdom was experiencing massive budget overruns, and that's why Beastly Kingdom didn't make it the final cut in the first place. So you end up with some stuff like Dino Land USA, and the Imagineers creating such an intricate story to justify that section of the park. To me, they all deserve a raise because it does make sense when you're there. You know what I mean? It all clicks.
Especially when you hear the story.
It did work better when Primeval World was there.
Yeah.
Because Primeval World being the cheap knockoff version of Dinosaur in its own way, to me, made so much sense since Chester and Hester were making this carnival to compete with the tourist draw of the Dino Institute. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, what an elaborate backstory to get us there. But, you know, you got to hand it to them when it adds up.
Yes. And it's corny, and I didn't go on any of that stuff except for the ride dinosaur. None of it. Like,
Right.
I wasn't really there for that. But when you're in it, I've got to say you're immersed.
Yeah.
That, like, I didn't like Primeval World because I didn't like the feeling of oh, I might be about to fall off.
Yeah.
So that's a personal thing. Although I guess a lot of people didn't like it because it's closed.
And it's also extreme. It was also super jerky and very uncomfortable to ride.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons.
There's no way I'm paying for a carnival ride. I don't like being yelled at.
Get out of here.
But I don't think they were really bad at yelling at you.
No.
I have been to other theme parks that have these carnival things, and they're like screaming to try to get you to come do the thing. And I'm like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
I paid to be in here. I'm not paying another $5 to try to win a stuffed animal that I don't want to carry around all day.
There is a level of irony with the fact that Walt Disney, when doing research, traveling to amusement parks all over the United States, he was so off-put by carnival atmosphere.
Yeah.
So, like, the fact that to the point where when he went to visit Coney Island, he has this quote that's like, the people there are so unpleasant. Everyone is so rude. Going to Coney Island is just about enough to make me want to swear off the industry and lose faith in humanity altogether.
Yeah.
So the fact that the carnival atmospheres that were created for Walt Disney World are at least not like carnival barkers and awful, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, I think that you could look at it as, oh, they went against his wishes, but you could also look at it as they made a better version of this, so that if you do like that stuff, you could get it without the terrible parts of it.
Right.
Because at least you know you're not getting rude.
Right.
You know what I mean? At Disney.
You would hope not.
You would hope not.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I think it's an immersive area. I don't do the Dumbo, the dinosaur.
Triceratops spin.
Yeah.
I've never done it in my whole life, I don't think.
Even when Bailey was little, we didn't do that boneyard thing. But I appreciate that it's there for the people that like that kind of thing. Anyway, I don't know. It's immersive.
No, yeah. I
do like the gift shop.
Oh, I love that gift shop.
Yeah.
It's like a tourist trap themed gift shop where they've got like a model train running along the ceiling and stuff. And
so immersive.
Totally
because
fits.
it goes with, yeah.
As a kid, I was always so confused about why we were in a parking lot. I never understood it. Because I literally thought, oh, this is the edge of Animal Kingdom.
Right.
This used to be cast member parking or something.
Oh, God.
And so they just built this little carnival. I literally thought that's what it was.
People probably still think that.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, like, for that...
they need to explain the story when you're walking in.
Exactly. They, like, should have, like, a plaque or a... Not that people would stop and read it.
Can you do a 2-minute... In case our listeners didn't hear when you explained it a while ago? Just
sure.
Quick.
Of course. The Dino Institute... which is the show building for the attraction Dinosaur.
Which is supposed to be like a museum.
Right. In this lore, this museum attracted a lot of visitors. Chester and Hester, being entrepreneurs and opportunists, saw this increasing popularity in this area, and they decided to construct a low-budget, dinosaur-themed tourist experience.
Tourist trap, yeah.
Directly across from the Dino Institute, in the same way that you see...
In their parking lot, right?
In their parking lot. In the same way that you see, like, cheap Disney gift shops and stuff lining the outside of Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
So they took that and they created this carnival-type environment that in some ways mirrors the Dino Institute experience. Like, when you used to go...
It's kind of like the making fun of the... What's the one called... There's one right outside of Disney that's like a carnival. You guys did it.
Kind of like a carnival.
Yeah. What's the
one?
Like
Old Town?
Yeah.
Oh, like tourist traps in general?
Right.
It is kind of like a send-up of tourist traps.
Right. Because there's a lot of, outside of Disney World, there's a few different places like this that have some, like low budget roller coasters and carnival rides and
Fun Spot.
Fun
Old
Spot.
Town,
That's the one I was actually
Gatorland.
Yeah.
There used to be something called Splendid China. All of all of this stuff that used to be just periphery to Walt Disney World to try to suck in those tourist dollars.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's kind of like making fun of that.
Right.
Anyway, go on.
Which honestly, for Walt Disney World being one of the prime places that happens, it's kind of fun.
It is funny
that they like decided, all right, well, we'll fold that into the story here.
Yeah.
So in that way,
So all of that carnival stuff is taking place like in the parking lot or in the parking lot next door to this museum.
Right.
Right. And that's why they're totally different themes.
Right. And it looks like
one's professional.
Yeah.
One
is what it's supposed to be. Yeah. Like the typical Disney immaculate, like, fully realized concept. And then the other side is a fully realized concept, but it's made to look rinky dinky.
Yeah. Hey, it's a story.
Use what you got, tell your story, I guess.
I think it's fun. I think the story is fun.
I would love it if I don't even necessarily, knowing the backstory, I don't necessarily mind it, but I think the thing that they've run into here is it is impossible to explain to the average guest.
I agree, but what's going to be more disjointed is, hey, we're going to throw Moana and Zootopia back here instead and just have no theme. I can't even imagine what they're going to, what theme do you know?
No.
Yeah.
There is nothing. It was just, and they didn't even say this is for sure going to happen. They say, imagine if Dino Land USA is reimagined
and
with
has
these
Moana
properties.
And Zootopia. Were those only two names?
Yeah.
And I don't see a connection.
It is a stretch for me, but I don't know what they're planning. So who knows?
Yeah, hey, they could pull it off. I'm not saying they can't pull it off.
Yeah.
But this at least makes sense to me. This theme that they've got right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think how successfully they're able to integrate Tiana's Bayou adventure into Frontierland is going to be like a good barometer for like seeing how far they're willing to commit to making these re-themes synergetic with the rest of the park.
Yeah, and I'm okay with them bringing all of this IP, all of these Disney movie characters into the park if they work it in right. But if they're shoehorning it in just for the sake of promoting a movie, that's going to be irritating.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are very critical of the World Showcase end of that, where they're kind of putting stuff in the countries.
But they're putting them in the right countries.
And in my opinion, it is fun to see how we'll take Frozen, a film inspired by the culture of Norway and its surrounding countries, to have that aesthetic faithfully recreated in the Norway pavilion in general, and then to go into the whimsy of a fairy tale inspired by that culture, I don't think is that far of a stretch.
I don't either.
So,
especially even more so for the ones where we're just adding a new ride, not replacing something that was already there that was historically more accurate. So like Remy, the Remy ride, for example. I mean, what's the harm? There's nothing there to begin with.
Just fun.
Yeah.
Just fun.
Yeah. I love it.
Now, something I can't get behind is they are basically phasing out Impressions de France, which was like the film in Epcot that told you the history of France. They're basically phasing that out with a bad Beauty and the Beast sing-along film. That I don't love. I wish they would have just made a new French film.
Right.
You know what I mean? But that's small potatoes in comparison to some of these
especially
other major
because those
makeovers.
People barely go to those to begin with.
True.
Either of them, really.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, anyway, there you go. There's at least some parameters for this discussion.
Yeah.
In terms of the low end to the high end, big changes to little changes.
Yeah.
And we'll dive a little bit deeper into the top half of our list in our next episode, which will be exciting because then we're going to get into some of these really crazy, well thought out ideas for these lands. You thought this Dino Land story was wild. Wait until you hear what they thought of as backstory for some of these experiences that have been built in, more recent years.
Yeah.
Since the Harry Potterification of it all.
Right. The newer ones are wildly elaborate.
Yeah. That is the name of the game.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would subscribe if you're listening on something like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or another.
Or if you're watching.
Yeah, or if you're watching on the visual version on YouTube, give a subscribe. And if you're on an audio platform, we would love if you left us a review. That would be awesome. We love reading them. We love to hear what you think about the podcast, and they help us get found more easily by other people who are interested in this Disney backstory kind of thing that we're doing here. So that would be super helpful.
Yeah. We also have an Etsy shop at Neverland Navigation is what it's called on Etsy. Custom shirts. We're both wearing one of our... Mine's like a custom. This one's actually listed.
I'm glad you ended up talking about Dinoland USA because it justified my let's go get that dino shirt.
And it's funny because Jake designed this one, and it's let's go get that dino, which is from the dinosaur ride. But really, I feel like this is the Chester and Hester design.
It is. The swirl that I incorporated into the design is inspired by in Primeval Whirl.
So funny.
Their version of time travel is taking a left-hand turn in front of like a swirling optical illusion reel.
Of course.
So that made its way into the shirt, of course.
Right.
But yeah, there's fun.
I think he likes it more than he knows.
Primeval Whirl?
No, the Chester and Hester.
I actually have a beautiful memory of riding Primeval Whirl in the rain with Tori. It was Super Bowl Sunday, so the crowd was super sparse, and we were kind of waiting for Flight of Passage to the queue to dry up a little so we could get in quick, and it worked. But in the meantime, we got absolutely soaked riding Primeval Whirl in the rain and screaming, and it holds a really nostalgic place in my heart. So I was actually kind of sad when they tore it down in a weird way.
Yeah.
And also it makes Chester and Hester's Dinorama so like empty and weird over there now.
It's weird now.
Yeah, they really made it even weirder than it was before.
Yeah.
But anyway, oh my gosh, that was in the middle of us telling you where to find us. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at Neverland Navco if you like tangents about Disney history.
Yeah.
Is that it? Is that everything?
Yeah, I think we covered everything.
All right. Well, I guess that leaves us for next week. So until next time, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you on our next adventure. Goodbye.